Hello and welcome to another week of Soap Secrets, and it was quite a great week last week, wasn't it? But just to warn you, this week, 26th of June to the 2nd of July, sees the playoffs for the Euros. So the TV listing schedules are kind of a bit subject to change, so bear with us, and it's very short notice change because the BBC and ITV have to make late decisions about which football games to show. So we will talk about Casualty and Holby City, but they may not be shown. So please check whattowatch.com for the latest schedules. But without further ado, let's introduce the very brilliant Victoria Wilson, who'll be talking about Holby today, which I hope will go out and the Euros doesn't scupper that. Now, Victoria, it was a pretty big week last week, wasn't it?
You could say that. So it served up a major shock. Obviously, we had the week before where surgeon Kian Madani took a drug overdose, and in the last episode, he tragically died. It's a bit of a shock because it happens right sort of within the sort of first 10 minutes of the episode. They after Fletch sort of finding him. He sort of rushed in and Kian's friends and colleagues all sort of battled to save him, but it wasn't enough.
It was a real shock, but in a way, I don't know what you're thinking, but the Kian storyline had gone on and on, hadn't it, really, for some time, and you kind of wondered how the producers, the story writers, script writers would actually... what was the journey? Where would it end? And I wonder whether this was, how that... Well, clearly is how they decided, but where you'd go if they hadn't have done this.
Yeah, the storyline would be, he gets clean and it's all, sweetness and light, but life isn't like that. And he was spiralling deeper and deeper out of control. We'd seen spells of him really sort of succumbing to his addiction, so this wasn't a surprise, really. The saddest thing is obviously losing the great Ramin from the show. He's so excellent. He is just a superstar.
That's the trouble, isn't it?
Yeah, but our loss is the West End's gain. So yeah.
Okay. So where does this leave Hansen and the rest of his colleagues?
Well, it's sort of in light of this sort of recent events. Hansen is kind of worried about the future of the hospital. I mean, he didn't sort of resume his sort of CEO position under the greatest of circumstances anyway, because obviously he was going through his own emotional turmoil. But he tries to sort things out this week. More on that later. And I guess it goes without saying that also this news has hit Lucky, mental health nurse Lucky, really quite hard. She'd grown quite attached to Kian. He'd become a good friend, and she kind of hoped he'd be a bit more, but that obviously never materialised. So this week she's kind of clearly struggling emotionally, but sort of ever the professional, she kind of throws herself into her work, and she ends up going above and beyond for a young couple on Darwin who they receive a absolutely devastating diagnosis. Basically the woman has cancer, but she doesn't want to tell her partner. Lucky, however, thinks he should know, so she basically takes it upon herself to tell him herself. This doesn't go down well with Chloe at all. She's confronted for sort of breaking protocol. When Chloe does that, though, basically an emotional Lucky just has this complete meltdown on the ward. It's compounded when it's revealed and kind of exposed that she had been managing Kian's addiction, or microdosing as it's known, before he died. She's clearly grieving for Kian. She's backed into a corner, and she seems to then have everyone at her: Chloe, Max, Fletch, Jenny, and there's a sort of a big scene where she just lashes out on the ward about how everyone let Kian down, basically. So you're sort of left wondering, is Holby's mental health nurse going to have to maybe take some time away from the hospital to sort her own head out?
Cool. That's, quite likely, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Well, when you are a therapist, you have to have regular therapy yourself. That's known. So this may be one of those times.
And Dom in all of this, there's a storyline with Dom, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, he's had quite a eventful few weeks or months, I guess, himself. But now he's kind of focused on moving forward, settling into his new role as clinical lead on Keller. But it seems he's not the only one moving on. He gets news that his ex-husband, Lofty, everyone knows, was played by Lee Mead, he's getting married. Dom finds out when he sees Sasha and Donna going off to his wedding, the wedding that he's obviously not invited to. They're already sort of agonising over that. His day gets worse when a patient basically accuses him of leaving a surgical glove inside him. Dom's adamant that never happened, but he sort of...
There's only one way to find out, and that's an X-ray.
Wow. No, they're kind of operating. They're already operating on him, and they sort of pull the glove out from inside. So this is afterwards. He kind of tells the guy what he found, and he said, "Well, you did the operation last time. You must have left it there." But it doesn't help that he's trying to sort of stand his ground with this patient, and there's a new locum on the ward, Rory, and he kind of undermines him in a way in terms of how they have very different ways of sort of dealing with the situation. Anyway, Rory kind of thinks, okay, I might have overstepped the mark, and he tries to apologise to Dom. But he's at this moment, Dom's really quite busy. The patient's gone missing, and Dom suspects he's got an eating disorder. And sure enough, they both find the patient. They track him down elsewhere in the hospital, and they find that he's eaten a load of surgical swabs. So we then have an indication as to maybe how the glove did get there.
I was going to say, because if you'd left a surgical glove inside for a while, I'd imagine it would have gone septic or, some nastiness.
Exactly. Well, he's obviously has this eating disorder / mental health issue that gives him an urge to eat inanimate objects, basically.
Oh, gosh.
So anyway, Dom and Rory, they work together to remove there's loads of swabs and everything in this guy's stomach, and they clearly make a good team. So, being clinical lead, Dom offers Rory a permanent job on Keller, and he sort of thinks they could work well professionally and personally. So asks Rory
I thought that wasn't allowed.
Well, this is Dom. He lives on the edge. So
this is Holby.
He asks Rory out on a date. However, it does prove to be something of a bad move. Rory kind of takes his offer the wrong way, and he kind of sees the job offer as being conditional on there being a date. And he kind of shocks Dom by revealing that as well as being a locum registrar, he's also an advisor for the sort of quality control commission, and that they've had notification. There's been a whistleblower at the hospital, and they're doing an inspection next week. And Rory basically is one of the inspectors, and he kind of tells Dom, "You really want to avoid having sexual harassment on the list." So that doesn't look good at all.
No.
So he goes to Hanson and said, "Look, I'm aware of this inspection. I've kind of done something that could affect us," and he sort of wants to know who the whistleblower is, and it's kind of revealed that this is one of the ways that Hanson wants to get to the bottom of what's been going on at the hospital, so he kind of is the whistleblower.
Interesting.
So you sort of wonder now, as Dom put his foot in it, is this going to be like the most short-lived clinical lead position on Keller? And I suppose, will he ever find love again? That story's kind of thrown up again for Dom this week, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, all the fans are going wild because of the new theme tune.
Yeah. It's not gone down too well. It's very different. The theme tune that we've known all this time is very punchy, very upbeat. It's very wow, Holby's on. This one is kind of they've gone for kind of, it's hard to describe. It's kind of a more dramatic but slower music.
Is it since they've announced that they're not going to be continuing with this? They've kind of, it seems a funny thing to change when it's on its way out anyway, isn't it?
Well, yeah, that's what the sort of Twitter folk are saying. They don't quite get it. I mean, it's a shame because it kind of landed with the big Kian climax from the week before. But people weren't talking about that; they were just talking about the theme tune. So it's different. People don't like change. People don't like the Holbys being axed. So there's a lot of
absolutely.
There's a lot of high emotion out there. There's a lot of high emotion out there, just as there is on the wards at the moment.
There is, right. Okay, well, let's hope that it stays in the schedule. But we'll also talk about Casualty. Claire, you're here too. Hi, Claire.
Hi, Hannah.
Right, Casualty. We have 2 very good guest stars this week, don't we?
We do. We have Alexi Sale and Leslie Ash.
Brilliant.
Leslie Ash has already been in Casualty and in Holby City, because she played Vanessa Lytton, who was the chief executive, and that was over 10 years ago. So she's making a guest star this week. But let's start off with Alexi Sale. He's a comedian and a writer, and actually, he's a really interesting man, Hannah. I listened to him on Desert Island Discs a couple of weeks ago, and he had so much to say. He is. He's from Liverpool. He's just brilliant. And he plays Lev's Russian dad. And you know what? When I saw them together, they did look a bit like father and son. It's kind of a really good bit of casting.
Uncanny.
It did. It was. So this week we do have a bit of a Lev storyline. He meets up with the homophobic thug Sam, who he hit and who is taking him to court, and he offers Sam money to drop the charges. I'm not sure that that's a wise decision. There's a row. Sam obviously wants more money, and he turns to storm away from Lev, and he crosses the road without looking, Hannah, and he's hit by a car, and he's hit quite badly by a car. You've got one of those big veins in your leg, and if you cut that, you can bleed out very, very quickly, and he's cut his leg on that vein.
This is why I struggle with Casualty. This is why I struggle with these hospital programs, because just the mere thought of that happening makes me go weak at the knees. I can't. Oh.
Lev just charges into action and he saves his life. He does it really well. He has to put a tourniquet to stop poor Sam bleeding out. It is. You see how paramedics do jump into action and do save people's lives. So it's really good. He finally has a big discussion this week with Faith, because Sam's still been. He saved his life, but he's still not saying, hey, well, I'll drop the charges then. I mean, you would, wouldn't you? You would say, okay. But no, he just ups the money because he's a drug addict and he's not a very nice person. Lev's really crushed under this. He's got a family. He doesn't want to lose his job. He's got kids to feed, and he has a big discussion with Faith, and it's a really emotional moment for both of them, because he says to his estranged wife that he's gay and that he won't live the lie any longer. And Faith thinks, we're moving forwards. This is great. And then they turn up at their marital home, and outside waiting to be let in is his Russian dad, Alexei. Will Lev confess all to his dad?
Yeah, and that's the final sort of piece, isn't it, of him really being who he is and living a real life, as opposed to putting on a pretense. And that, I mean, it's hard. I think it would be very hard.
It is, and his dad really is the reason why he hasn't confessed that he's gay, why he tried to hide it and pretend that he wasn't. So this is going to be an extraordinary meeting between the two of them.
And so you also said that Leslie Ash is back. Well, brilliant news. What's she doing? She's back in the same character, I assume.
She's back as the same character, yes, as Vanessa, but she comes in as a patient, so she's not back working in Holby, in the hospital Holby. She's back as a patient. She comes in, she's hurt her arm. She says she fell down the stairs, and she comes in with her partner, who is played by Bill Ward. Now, Bill Ward, this is a very interesting piece of casting because Bill Ward is best known as wife beater Charlie Stubbs from Coronation Street from about 15, 20 years ago. So this is a really good bit of casting. And Vanessa has injuries that seem to suggest she is being beaten by her partner. But is she?
So you're always going to jump to conclusions because you've seen him do this elsewhere.
Yes.
Okay. And we see Rash and Tina trying to sort things out. But there's a side to Tina that we see that's quite manipulative, isn't there? Yes, we do. So when she tries to get Vanessa to admit that maybe she's in an abusive relationship, Tina just comes up with this story. She just acts it out how she was in an abusive relationship and how it wasn't going to change, and you quite believe her. And then Rash says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realise you had that kind of relationship." And she went, "Oh, I didn't. That was just made up." And you just kind of think, "Oh, it's a bit weird." And then she also has another patient who she looks up on social media, and she says, "Oh, I think she's allergic to this," and so she's prying quite deeply. She's being a bit manipulative. Is she the Tina we know and love, or is this a different side to her? Yes, I think it might be a different side. Now, moving to the other soaps, just another reminder, flagging this all the way through this podcast. Don't forget, because football is on 5 nights this week, so EastEnders, Corrie and Emmerdale will be showing all the episodes, which is great, on iPlayer and ITV Hub from Monday the 28th of June. So you can watch them live, or, if you choose to, you can binge watch the lot if you've got an evening free. So just a quick reminder there. So talking about Coronation Street, will I be binge watching it this week? Do you know what? I quite like a binge of a watch. I think particularly this week when it's focusing around my favourite story. And so I might not be able to not just watch one run into the other, So tell us more. Do I really want to know, Claire, honestly?
So this is why I put this one first, Hannah, because this is your favourite story, and I wanted to say so much last week and I couldn't. So I'm just going to say it to you. Alina is pregnant this week.
Oh.
So of course she is, isn't she? Of course she is.
It was the next thing, after the skinny jeans had to come the pregnancy.
It did. Tyrone is flawed. I'm not sure when he went into this midlife crisis type relationship that a baby was really top of his list of things to do, and he's still reeling in shock, because it's kind of like you have adults having sex in soaps. None of them take precautions, do they?
No, they don't. There's a lot of accidental pregnancy in soaps, I must admit.
It's kind of like if you have sex, you can get pregnant, or you might not get pregnant. So it's kind of like you have to.
They're all very fertile in soaps, aren't they?
Yes, they are completely. Anyway, so yeah, Alina's pregnant.
And with those skinny jeans, I'd have said he might not have been as fertile afterwards.
So he's just gobsmacked by it. He's reeling in shock, and he heads to meet Fizz at the Undertaker's to organise Kirsty's funeral, because as we remember, his ex-partner Kirsty died suddenly last week. And he's struggling to concentrate. He's thinking, oh my goodness, I've got more money to go out because babies cost humongous amounts of money. And Fizz assures him that he is a great dad and that they will sort out joint custody. But of course, Fizz doesn't know at the moment that Alina's pregnant, so she's trying to take trying to be nice to him and sort it all out. Evelyn guesses, because that's what Evelyn does best, and I think Alina's sick and she just thinks, I think you're pregnant. But she doesn't tell Fizz either. So, this is really going to hit Fizz hard. Everybody knows, apart from Fizz. How does Tyrone really feel about Alina being pregnant? This really wasn't what he went into this relationship for. And in the end, it's not until the Friday of this week that he finally tells poor Fizz how will she react to the news? I think she's going to be fizzing, is our fizz. What do you think, Hannah?
Fizzing, but I think really, really upset. I mean, she's gone through, the emotional journey, hasn't she, of the anger, and then, like you say, this week she assures him that they can work it out and there can be joint custody. So the anger sort of subsided a bit and she's sort of moving forward, I guess. But this, I think, could really feed into us seeing Fizz being really, really upset. I mean, it's just that is a connection you can never lose, once you've got a child with somebody. So this really kind of, even if in the back of her mind the idea is that he might leave her and come back, that reality kind of, it fades away completely, I would say, when another child's involved.
Yes, it does completely. And, there's the other thing is that Tyrone's moved on and she's left alone and she doesn't have a new romantic partner. I mean, it hasn't been that long, let's be honest. It's only been about 6 weeks. So why would she have found somebody new? So she feels left behind. She feels all of those things. And so he has the new relationship, the new love. He's all smiles. And now she's pregnant. So there's even more smiles. Yeah.
And there's another really big storyline this week. I mean, I'm really shocked at this one. Were you?
Yes, it was. It's a great twist in it all, know. And Evelyn also, who she thought was on her side, has been keeping what she thought away from Fizz. So she feels betrayed on two fronts.
But this isn't the only storyline, is there? Because there's I was shocked really because Gail. She has a heart attack.
Yes, she does. There are honestly her kids. Her kids are just. I don't know how she puts up with them. How has she survived with those three, with David, Nick, and Sarah for all this time? She hasn't. She gets really stressed this week because Natasha, after last week and the shootings, Natasha doesn't want Sam near Nick until everything's calmed down, and I think that's fair. If your son was shot at in the street, you have to take steps to protect him. And Gail is brilliant. She's a great grandma and she's been looking after little Sam for Natasha. And not only does she look after Sam, but she respects Natasha's wishes, which I think is really nice. And David says, well, now you have Sam, you can let Nick round and visit with his son. And she says, no, Natasha doesn't want that, and I'm going to respect Natasha's wishes. And David does something underhand and stresses her all out and tries to get Nick into the house so that he can visit, and this is so there's a big row, and she's had lots of rows, she's had all of that, and she takes a toll on her, and she has a heart attack.
Unbelievable. Is she going to pull through? Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? That is the question. Wow. Yeah, I'm going to binge watch that one. Definitely. Now, Emmerdale. Yes. I mean, so much going on in Emmerdale, but Chaz and Kane have quite a bit of drama with their mum Faith this week.
Yes, poor Faith. She came back into the village. She's still living in the hearse. Chaz and Kane don't really have a great relationship with their mum. And about 5 years ago, she did have cancer. And this week, she has major health worries. And she hasn't told anyone. She's in pain. She's worried, Hannah. She's worried that her cancer is back, which is a fair worry. She is really, really stressed about it. And when she falls over, both of her kids unfortunately think she's drunk, which is a bit mean.
Oh no!
It's massively mean. She's living in a hearse, which isn't very pleasant. So she's basically homeless, and then her kids don't really spot her health concerns, and she's so she's really frightened. Her cancer has returned. Manpreet, her doctor, arranges for an immediate urgent MRI scan after her shock collapse. So she's not thinking, oh, she's drunk. She's thinking, what is going on here? And she knows her health history. And Faith confides in Pollard, and she was sort of fighting over Pollard with Brenda, and Brenda kind of won. But Faith still goes to Pollard for a bit of support because sometimes you need your friends, don't you, Hannah?
You do, yeah, definitely.
And while
Lockdowns taught us that.
Yes, she needs a friend. She does need a friend. The kids aren't stepping up to it. Pollard is he had some feelings for her, but they're not going in the romantic direction. But he's still a good friend, and he does support her. But of course, Brenda is really nervous, and she's convinced something is going on between the pair. And Pollard, not wanting to mess up his new romance with Brenda, he tells Faith that she needs to tell her family. But will she? She does.
Yeah.
She should do, because she needs Chaz and Kane.
Yeah, she does, especially if they think that she's drunk, as opposed to anything else. Nasty Mina plotting again this week.
Yeah, Mina's got a really, really mean streak in her. We saw her about 3 weeks ago. She locked Andrea's small dog, in a hot car.
Oh my gosh, that's just so awful.
It is. And the dog was very, very lucky that somebody spotted it, and the dog was rescued. But yes, so this is what Mina's like. I mean, I think that signposted how nasty she was, because I think, as a writer, I don't know whether I would have come up with it, whether I would have dared to have said, let's make a character do that. Do you? How do you feel about that, Hannah?
Yeah, this is just absolutely horrible. Can you imagine the hate that she's got as well?
Yes.
Externally from this, because that does happen, doesn't it? People struggle to see the blur the lines, shall we say?
Yeah, they do. So she's plotting again this week. She's in love with David, and she's desperate to move in with him, but plans have not come to fruition. Now David's great. He's got his son Jacob, he's really, really supporting Jacob, but Jacob kind of gets in the way a bit because he's a teenager, and she wants to get Jacob out of the way so that she can move in with David, and she steals the Pride collection, because it's Pride this week, and the Pride collection tin, and she makes it look like Jacob stole it. So just how far will Mina go to get her man? I mean, this is, setting up your boyfriend's son as a thief is quite horrible, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say it's not the best place to start a relationship, but there we go. How far is she prepared to go to get this bloke? It's Pride Week, isn't it, in Emmerdale this week?
Yeah, it is. And the Vivian makes a guest appearance, so don't miss that.
Yeah, I won't be missing that. Absolutely love it. Brilliant.
It is brilliant, because Mandy's wedding dress was styled on one of the Vivian's dresses. So that's why they've invited the Vivian onto this Pride Week in Emmerdale.
Excellent. Okay, so Hollyoaks. We're going with Hollyoaks, not as the last one this week. Mixing it up. There's a bit of a game of cat and mouse between Fergus and Grace, isn't there? Because they fight over the loft. Yes.
So we know that Fergus is horrible and evil. He's not just dodgy. Hollyoaks call him dodgy, but actually I think he's evil, because he's the one that is
loosening the screws on the sign. I mean, that's just horrid.
Yes, it's horrid. And also he's the one that sets cameras up in his rented houses and is spying on his female tenants and selling it to men who like to spy on women. So
awful.
I'm going to use the word evil over him. So we saw him loosen the screws, and that hit poor Darren. And Grace didn't have any insurance, so Fergus swooped in with an offer to be a silent partner to help Grace out. Now Grace doesn't, obviously nobody knows apart from us, the viewer and the fans, about the cameras and Operation Bluebird, and obviously Grace doesn't know that he loosened the screws, so we might be a bit dodgy, but she doesn't think he's evil at this point. So yeah, she said yes to this, but we know how dodgy he is, and now Grace is now finding out just how dodgy Fergus is, and so he wants more. He took on to be a silent partner, but his end goal is to have the loft. So Grace is now finding out that this is his end goal, and she's got to try and stop him. So she interrupts a meeting with a potential new tenant this week and paints him as a terrible landlord. And in revenge, he gets her arrested.
Nice. What a nice guy.
Yeah, and then he says he will change his statement if she signs over the rest of the loft. So she really is in a big bind. But in one final move, Grace steals Fergus's laptop. And if she can guess his password...
she's going to see everything, isn't she, if she can?
Yeah. She would discover Operation Bluebird.
Yeah, this is the end. It's got to come tumbling down. That's got to be what happens, surely.
But she's got to guess his password.
Yeah, I know. That is the problem. But then, when you read all the kind of, reports about people's passwords, they're often not quite as complicated as they perhaps should be. So, EastEnders. Let's move on to EastEnders last but not least. We see Janine, Charlie Brooks, returning to the square. We've got lots of returns, lots of new faces, haven't we, generally, at the moment? This
has been announced this week, and we will see her on screen in late August or early September. So we've got a couple of months to go. We last saw Janine back in 2014. I couldn't believe that. That's 8 years ago. And she was on trial for the murder of her husband, Michael. But she was found not guilty, although I would dispute that. And she left for Paris. So Janine's a good baddie. She's brilliant.
She's a great baddie, Janine. Crikey, she's got real form, hasn't she?
Yes.
And it's also Linda's birthday this week, and she has a joint baby shower birthday do.
Well, Frankie and Nancy throw her a joint baby shower and birthday do. So she's been outed to the square, which she wasn't really planning on. But quite frankly, she's nearly 6 months pregnant. I don't know whether people are just thinking, have you got wind? Have you eaten too many pies, or are you pregnant? I would think most people would
saw a picture of her, in the real world the other day, and she's got a really big. She's really pregnant at the moment, isn't she, in real life? So
Yes. So there's only so many big bags and flirty tops, the ones that flirt around your tummy, hide it. And then sometimes, I don't know, you can just stand oddly and then you can see the bump. So I think most people probably would have thought, you're pregnant.
Yeah, exactly.
So, especially at 6 months. So she's been outed in the square. She gets a surprise present from Max, a surprise birthday present. Of course, Max doesn't know that she's carrying his baby. And will she tell Jack, Stuart and Rainey that the postmark is from Croatia? Because, Max about 3 weeks ago ran off with little Abby when Jack took Abby to Paris. For Max to see his granddaughter, and Rainey's beside herself because she's co-parenting with Max. And she, to be honest with you, she's really been raising little Abby because he's been all over the place and he hasn't seen Abby for 6 months. So, in all intents and purposes, she is Abby's mother, adopted mother, I suppose you could say her. So if Max is sending presents to Linda, do you think he's going to turn up in the square? Because he does have Abby. He should really be returning there at some point.
He should be coming back. And what's that going to... what problems that will cause with Mick? And then, he'll see the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
And finally, Stuart and Rainey make a decision on who their surrogate is going to be. And they choose... Bernie!
Yes. Bernie's been desperate. They need the money because Stuart and Rainey were going to pay her. And, their family, but Bernie's family is really struggling financially. And Bernie's desperate to lose weight because it helps if you're not terribly overweight when you're pregnant, and so especially if you're going to be a surrogate. So she's been desperately trying to lose this weight, and she has been turning to diet pills, Hannah, not doing the let's eat less and take a bit of exercise route. She's been trying to do it really quickly, and of course weight loss is all about, it's a slow, steady weight loss rather than
of course,
fast, quick one.
Yeah, not a good way to do it.
Yeah, I don't think diet pills are a good way to achieve it, especially not if you're going to be a surrogate. So, so she's upping these diet pills. Will it all go to plan? What's this actually going to do with her physical health? And
yeah, is she in the best place to be a surrogate? I mean, presumably. I mean, I've not looked into this, but presumably you do need to go through the health checks, check that your body can take the pressure and the strain and everything that goes to making a baby, creating a baby. Oh, what a week! Another week. So plenty of soaps for you all if you don't fancy the Euros, or if you're in my house, a little choice, I'm afraid. But thank you very much for listening, and we will be back next week. Until then, stay safe and enjoy.